I am beyond excited to announce that I have partnered with Magimix for Season 8 of Crazy Sexy Food. Magimix is a family-owned business that has the amazing reputation as makers of quality kitchen appliances that are adored by chefs and home cooks alike. I remember growing up and always seeing my mum's beloved Magimix on her countertop and the utter ease of how she used it. With their 30-year motor guarantee, these machines have always been built to last. They continue to be relevant as ever in the busy kitchen and make fantastic food processors that make your food go further and reduce food wastage. They are a godsend when it comes to batch cooking and using up leftovers. I use my Magimix every single day. If you're ready to step into the world of Magimix with a new food processor, blender, ice cream maker, or any other bit of kit, then simply pop over to their website and use my exclusive code at checkout for a 15% discount. The code is MagimixCSF. Make it with Magimix. Hi, and welcome to Crazy Sexy Food. I'm Hannah Harley-Young. This podcast is all about the love of food and how it plays a part in our lives. I sit down with well-known personalities, food experts, chefs, and people who, well, just love their food, to find out all about their life, career, and their favourite tastes along the way. Today I'm joined by one of the leading voices in African cuisine, Lerato Umah-Shaylor, or just Lerato by trade. As a food writer, presenter and cook, Lerato's love of Africa and its glorious food has been the foundation of her career in the culinary world. In what started as cookery classes and supper clubs, Lerato has gone on to show the world how diverse, fresh, fragrant and delicious her continent's food is. Originating from West Africa, her take on jollof to the ever-popular plantain recipes can finally be discovered in her new cookbook, Africana. As a massive West African food lover, I am very excited to talk about some of my favourite dishes and find out how hot Lerato can really go. Thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to Crazy Sexy Food.
Thank you. I forgot you were talking about me. I was like, oh, wow.
Who is she? Who is she? I mean, we have to just say the fact that you work under basically one name, Lerato, you're kind of in like Beyonce territory.
Well, if you say so.
I think take it. I love it. I'm waiting to get to that moment. I think I've still got a bit more like time ahead of me, but I am just waiting for oh yeah, you're with Hannah, right?
Yeah. Thanks, darling.
So I always start my chats with asking, what did you have for breakfast today?
Ooh, a hot chocolate, that's it. Very boring.
Okay.
But something more exciting for lunch I'm looking forward to.
What are you having?
Jollof.
Well, we may as well let's just get this out the way. So I have Lerato's new cookbook here, and I have spent 12 years being completely in love with particularly Nigerian food. I had a boyfriend who was Nigerian who introduced me to the wonderful cuisine. Or should I say actually his mum, who was sort of making these things and sort of giving me the good old Nigerian Tupperware.
Yeah.
At one point my fridge was just like Tupperware on Tupperware.
Was it ever ice cream? Sometimes
yes,
ice cream tubs.
the old ice cream tubs. Oh my God, yeah.
I wonder why.
That is proper African.
Yeah.
I love that. And this is my second attempt at making jollof. So I've served you some. I want you to try some. And I want you to tell me what you think. And I'm happy for criticism. Make it constructive. I'm sensitive.
Honestly, it already looks, the first tell of fantastic jollof is the look. It's really rouge and that deeply colored reddish orange.
Yeah.
And then you can't miss the smell. It's smoky. This is the type of jollof you walk past and you're like, I gotta come back. So even without tasting it, and I'm not flattering you here.
Okay.
Just facts.
I'm loving this.
I can see little burnt bits, which shows that you did smoke it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Shall I taste?
Yes, please.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. She's trying it. She's tasting it. She's nodding.
It's really good. You know what I love about it? It's fragrant, it's smoky, as the recipe intends.
Yeah.
And it's really spicy. It's spicier than I would normally cook it. So maybe you put 2 Scotch bonnets.
I might have.
I'm not a firecracker like most people would assume. All Nigerians love chili. I think in my recipe I use half a Scotch bonnet or one, and I say,
I think this might be 1.5.
Like, put more if you like, because people will be like, is that enough Scotch bonnets? But it's spicy. Jollof rice can take it. It's lovely, Hannah. It's really, really good.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, this is like the biggest dream come true. I feel like I've actually feel like I've made it. I sort of feel like this is something to add to my CV, that I can make jollof. It's an accomplishment, because
it's an easy recipe for me, because I've cooked it, I've made the mistakes, but a lot of people get it wrong.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is amazing. Okay. It's very, very, you can feed this to a Nigerian auntie. Okay. And you will get. Oh
God, I'm getting shivers down my spine. Oh my God, it's funny. I mean, I still haven't cracked Iranian food, but clearly I'm great with the whole Nigerian, so that's all good.
Oh, thanks for that.
As I mentioned, this recipe does come from the new book Africana, which is such an exciting book. And I have to say, although I'm not African, or I'm not from the continent or any of the countries, it's so great to finally have a cookbook out there that is celebrating some of the cuisines that I think sort of get pushed to the side and don't get spoken about enough. So talk to me about the book.
The book is really, it's almost a book I wrote for myself, but not to be selfish. I did write the book for cooks across the world. It's a book that sort of celebrates African cooking in its entirety. Yeah. It was very difficult because I'm like, gosh, how many countries can I put in? What I did is I made sure every single region is in the book. It's really something that I personally I don't think there's any other book on the shelves anywhere that's like it. There are several African books, lovely books that celebrate individual regions. But I just felt I was always hungry for Africa as a whole, going on this adventure through travel and food, through food and travel. And I just felt that I needed to write, I needed to communicate this passion. I needed to share the recipes. A lot of the recipes that I already knew. Some were recipes from friends and family. Some were recipes that were really important and sort of representative of different regions, but people just weren't talking about. And I just this was a book that I was really hungry and desperate to produce. Obviously, not being sure of how people would take it, how Africans would take it, how the world would take it. Will they care? Do people really want this? I think the main question was, there was a big gap in the market, and I thought this book can definitely fill that gap. And of course, apart from representing the recipes and the regions, flavorful food, which I think is lacking.
No, totally. And that's kind of what we were talking about before we started recording, is that one thing that can be said for African cuisine as a whole is that it does not lack flavor.
Yeah.
It is really punching. And I think I just think it's so exciting. And even when I was going through it and sort of, like dog earing the recipes that sounded like good to me, it was like, my gosh, this is a Senegalese dish, or this is, an Ethiopian dish. Things that perhaps I've never heard of before, and how exciting that is.
And that's okay. If you're not from the region and you haven't really traveled, you don't really know people from the region and you don't know, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a crime, not knowing. But
You're not expected to know every cuisine in the world.
You can't know everything. That's why I felt particularly responsible. I mean, it's not my job but I personally felt a responsibility as an African, as somebody who has traveled, who has lived, who loves the cuisine, to just share what I know, what I'm learning, and almost pick your interest to learn more. If you enjoy the book, then perhaps you might want to ask more questions, travel more, enjoy more things, even teach me some more things.
No, totally. So when you were sort of doing the research for some of the recipes, or if maybe perhaps there were countries that you maybe not visited, where were you sort of like getting your inspirations from? So
a lot of countries that I didn't have much relationships with, I reached out to some chefs.
Oh, nice.
I'd eaten lots of Ethiopian and Eritrean food, but I actually reached out to an amazing chef in Australia who had been on TV a few times. She's doing her thing. She does lots of coffee ceremonies. So we had a lengthy Zoom chat where we had we talked about food, shared experiences, and I asked intricate questions. For example, I said, do you make injera, which is the Ethiopian, Eritrean, it's like a sourdough bread. It's a bread that they used to eat everything. It's like their utensil. And I asked her, do you make it, at home? And she says, no, I buy it from the shops. And that answered a very important question. In the West, we always want to be authentic. And we try too hard sometimes to respect people's authenticity, which is great. It's a good thing. But sometimes we overdo it sometimes, trying to show that we can make everything from scratch. Who has time? If an Ethiopian buys her injera, who are you to bother
to suddenly now start making it at home?
Of course, making it is great. Those traditions are celebrated in Africana. We celebrate, we highlight and celebrate the traditions, but also it's a very cookable book. If you don't have time to make injera for 5 days,
is that how long it takes?
It takes a while, for the starter to
Yeah,
ferment.
yeah. Okay.
I have a quick injera in the book. I use the science of recipes and ingredients. I have a quick injera with vinegar. It gives you that sour taste if you want that. And if you do want the 5-day injera, I'm sure you can Google it on YouTube.
But we just don't have time now for that.
So a lot of the recipes are representative of real life, how a real life African would approach these things, in their normal day-to-day life, whether they live in Africa or they live abroad, just so that an outsider, like a foreigner, somebody who's foreign to these recipes, can relate to it in an easier way as well.
Absolutely. Oh, well, honestly, congratulations. And it's a very good addition to my growing collection of cookbooks, but honestly one that is sort of at the forefront at the moment.
Thank you.
And also, as we just said, it's a really lovely education to actually try things, obviously coming, being half Iranian, and I love Middle Eastern food in general, but it's just exciting to be trying something just as flavorful but completely different. So
I'm glad.
Well done.
I'm glad.
So I want to take it back. I want to start at the beginning. You were raised between West Africa and the UK. I want you to kind of paint the picture of your childhood, but sort of linking it back to the food. What were you eating? Who was cooking? What dishes remind you of your childhood? Sort of, give me the full story.
So my childhood was very much Lagos/London, back and forth. Winter would be definitely white, white winter.
Yeah.
And, much of the year would be a warm weather in Nigeria or here. And a typical breakfast. I mean, not during the week, during the weekend. Typical breakfast growing up was plantain, baked beans, sausage, eggs, a plantain fry up if you would have it.
Oh, yes.
And when I say that to some people, even Nigerians, they're like, that's strange. And I'm like, but I just thought that was quite normal. That, everyone ate this food. So that's a typical breakfast growing up. Now, I make it quicker in the oven. I'd bake the plantains, chuck some sausages, peppers, and, bang it in the oven. Really
like a tray bake.
Like a tray bake with plantain, exactly. Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, really simple. You can chuck
that.
some beans in there, and baked beans, or, beans from a can. So that was my typical childhood, eating that and going back and forth. It was never really strange. It was just a marriage of cultures. And I think my mother did that quite well. I never really felt like the other. And I think that's what helped me write this book, even though it was a difficult book. I never really had that problem of feeling like I was out of place when I was in the UK. And then, of course, in Nigeria, I'm amongst my kin, the same color. So I'm comfortable. But I'm just so happy that my childhood was not one where I really saw that I was different, even though I was different in the UK. I started noticing that difference actually as an adult, cooking and serving the food here, when people started pointing out the difference. But as a child, we always loved eating communal meals, sharing food together. But I was also a very picky child. I hate pasta.
Pasta? Really? Why?
I actually do not like pasta.
So you still don't like pasta?
I still don't eat pasta. I cook it all the time. I make fresh pasta. I can taste it, but I can't swallow pasta. I was in boarding school very young, and a nun force-fed me pasta. So I had a manic episode, and since then there's this block.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've revealed it now. I cannot actually swallow pasta. But
I mean, that's a fascinating fact. I mean, but there was obviously some, not to get too deep, but there's obviously like a bit of trauma there.
Yeah.
Which, if it happens during childhood, like I probably have some trauma. That's probably why I don't eat butter, because there's probably trauma involved somewhere in there. But
so that brings it
really
back to the kind of mother I had. We had freedom. So my brother loved what we call swallow. In Nigeria, it could be eba, which is a cassava grain steamed. They look like polenta. It looks like polenta. Yeah. You cook it in hot water, and it's like, a nice dough. You eat it with soups, egusi, stew, okra stews, okra soups. So my brother would very much eat that, which I would as a child, I called that stodge. But now, as I'm older, I'm like, I'm more romantic about my descriptions. While I loved rice, curries, tomato stews, curry-based stews and sauces. So as a child, I had freedom. In the same household, we ate different things. My brother could eat what he wanted. I could eat what I wanted. So growing up, I became this cook who I love celebrating that freedom. I don't insist that everyone must eat or like everything. You don't have to like everything in my book just because I want you to love African cooking. So that freedom, that sort of just having that world of travel, traveling, being in the UK often. And then my mom sent me to several different countries to live. She sent us to Republic of Benin. We call it République du Bénin. It's next to Nigeria. It's a francophone country. So she shipped us off there to study. I remember her friends saying, how can you send your kids abroad? You're heartless. Keep them close. But she knew what she was doing. She wanted me to spread my wings. And there, obviously, I learned how to cook several different things. Hibiscus. I fell in love with hibiscus in Benin. A lot of hibiscus in this book.
Yes, I've seen it.
So my childhood was very, very much... It was a very formative period in my life that really made me who I am as a cook. As a cook, always searching for flavor, like as a greedy cook.
But hugely, I mean, what a fascinating childhood. So where else were you sort of sent off to?
Well, so non-African, I have family in Holland.
Okay.
So we lived, we always holidayed in, a lot of Christmases would be spent in Holland, New Year's in Holland. There's a recipe in the book that actually talks about that. Oliebollen in Holland, it's like a donut. It's a drop donut with raisins and brown sugar. And then in Nigeria, we have a donut called puff puffs.
I know about puff puffs.
So I merged oliebollen and puff puff because of my hate for something else, Christmas pudding. I hate Christmas pudding. I cannot stand it.
I hate Christmas pudding as well.
I just wonder what, and I worry that it's dangerous. Like, is this healthy?
Yeah, no, it's awful. I hate it. That is fascinating. So I'm kind of curious. I just want to go back to your time when you would be in the UK. Were you in boarding school the whole time, or were you also at home with your mum, who I assume was the primary cook?
At home with my mum. Between Nigeria and the UK, my mum was always so she was the primary cook, but she mainly cooked at the weekends because she had a business. She would travel.
Okay.
When we were in the UK, she would be home a lot with her, so she would cook often.
And if you ever had, I assume, you were young, perhaps you had friends come over. What was their reception towards the food that was being served at home?
They loved it because it was plentiful and a lot more flavorful than wherever else they were coming from. The food was plentiful because we do show, and I think it wasn't just something to do with my mum. Across the board, I've noticed that Africans love, I think it's common in your culture as well, right? We love to feed people, almost force feed. If you don't eat, it's actually upsetting.
It's actually insulting if you go to someone's house and you
refuse. So you've got to, but that's interesting because my mom always fed us before we went out. So I don't know why she did that. She always made sure we were full.
She wanted to make sure you were full.
Yeah, I thought that's very strange. And then when we go out and then she's looking at us and she's like, oh, just have a little. I'm like, but I'm full. But yeah, my friends loved coming to my home. It was full of food, lots of amazing options, and also that freedom. Because in a lot of African homes, I've noticed sometimes, the kids just have to sit back and perhaps they're fed what's available. But my mother allowed a lot of freedom. You could have as much as you wanted. I was allowed to put my hand in the pot, which in other homes that I went to, as a child, you're not allowed to, but I was allowed in the kitchen. So yeah, food was plentiful. Food was amazing. Taking food home. And I do these same things now when I have events. I try to make people take takeaway.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
I love it.
Because it makes people happy when they're fed. It doesn't mean that they're hungry or they're coming from a place where they haven't got any food, but it just shows that you love them, you care, and it's almost you want them to remember you as well, when they go home and eat that jollof rice.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, it always tastes a bit better the next day anyway, right?
True.
So that's probably also why it tastes good, because I made that yesterday. It's been sitting.
This
it's
is day-old jollof.
Yeah. And I just think it's always a bit tastier.
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously do want to just have an actual conversation about Nigerian food, just because I have had a connection to it in the past. And, it's a very interesting cuisine for me, because I think a lot of people, jokes aside, do probably see it as like very spicy. It's got a lot of Scotch bonnets in its dishes, which obviously works for me. But I'm also aware that my threshold of spice is slightly abnormal to the average person. But I guess what we have to talk about is the jollof and the politics of jollof that always makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's
because
quite fun.
It is, because there's that kind of like, because obviously Ghanaians have their jollof. It's that sort of like, whose is better? I've seen actual arguments happen amongst friends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so talk to me about Nigerian food and sort of what it's about and I guess the influences of it.
Just to point out, somebody just told me by looking at my jollof in a photo from my book launch party, and she said, "That's Ghanaian jollof." So
wow.
I'll just leave that there.
Oh, how did you deal with that?
I was like, that's a compliment, because if I'm Nigerian cooking Nigerian jollof and you think that's Ghanaian jollof, then I guess mine is the best jollof, because it's the best.
Because it's basically all of them. Perfect.
You know, Nigerian food is varied and wonderful. It's varied in its complexity, in its flavor, simply because the people are varied, the land is varied, the flavor profiles are varied. But even in that variation, there's some dishes that perhaps are, particular to one tribe, but the whole country loves. Egusi soup, for example, which, to put it as plainly as possible, is crushed pumpkin seeds. We call it melon seeds. So it's the creamy version of pumpkin seeds, crushed into a paste or sometimes ground into a powder, added to a nice broth with fish and chicken. And dishes like that are, transcend culture. We love okra. Okra, we call it okra soup.
Yeah, I call it okra. Yeah, I love okra.
We love okra. I particularly like mine a little bit crunchier, so I would chop it up and put it at the end. My mother likes grating her, so it's a little bit slimy.
Oh.
So I don't like the slime. I like it chunky.
I weirdly quite like it slimy.
Yeah.
I know that's something that really puts people off, the actual vegetable as a whole.
There's an Iranian dish.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, so okra, things like okra, the soups, the soups with the swallows, that the romance of sort of like picking the eba and putting it in the soup. And I say that as if I eat like that. I actually use a fork. My brother would be caught using his hands. I would always use a fork.
Yeah.
I'm just that child that didn't like eating with my hands. So the soups and stews, very heavy on peppers, sweet peppers, not necessarily hot peppers. Lots of chili. Nigerians do like heat, but I'm Nigerian and my mother isn't particularly a firecracker. She doesn't like it too hot. So
I love that you call me a firecracker. I actually love that. I'm going to use that.
I can't. Yeah. So it's we have that variation of food with lots of spices, very bewitching spices, lots of herbs. We have our own type of which is actually used in Indonesia as well. And I think Thailand. We have our African blue basil, which is very, I say basil, which is very fragrant and almost like a mix of, cinnamon and clove and just wonderful. So a mix of spices and chilies and peppers and just a wonderful cocktail of different recipes that I think, make up the Nigerian cuisine. And a lot of our food transcends, culture, transcends country. You go to Ghana and they're drinking Chapman, which is in the book. It's a cocktail made with bitters, Angostura bitters, and what I would call a version of pomegranate molasses. Grenadine is pomegranate.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize, And we would use, some fizzy drinks, which I don't want to call the brand, the popular fizzy drinks, to mix up this wonderful cocktail. Now in Ghana, they're drinking that. You go to Togo, they're drinking the same thing. And it's just, I think there's something about Nigerians. I say we're everywhere. We're just like, we're everywhere.
You're a bit like Iranians, to be honest. We're always bloody everywhere as well.
We're just everywhere. And wherever we go, we take our food, our culture, our brilliance and hospitality, which, go to any Nigerian home, you will be, welcome like a king. Yeah. So the food is, vibrant and varied. You just have to experience it. And that's one thing I'm proud of Africana. I didn't shy away from putting those recipes that are more popular, like the jollof, which has done very well. It's done great things for us. But beyond jollof, there's more, much more. Just yesterday, I had a journalist I admire quite, Felicity Cloak. She cooked my beans, slow cooked beans, or you can call it braised beans. And that's actually a dish that, when I saw that picture, it did something to my heart, because that's what my mum weaned me on. That's what I eat when I'm poorly. That's what I want to eat on my last day on earth. It's, the Ghanaians call their version red, but I'm not Ghanaian, so I wouldn't call it red. And we cook it differently. Cook it with peppers, palm oil, crayfish. If you don't want fish in it, I have a cheat with smoked paprika. just a wonderful slow cooked bean dish with fried plantains and crispy onions.
And I also, as we sort of, especially, I mean, obviously a completely different climate to Nigeria, but when you say some of these dishes, I'm thinking, gosh, we're coming in towards winter. That's what I want to eat.
It's very interesting you say that. It's very interesting you say that. Somebody asked me as well that a lot of these recipes are winter warmers, but they're not from wintry countries, which is very interesting. We eat a lot of warming foods in that hot climate. It's refreshing.
No, I mean, it's great. I mean, my particular favorite dish is something called Ep6, which I know a lot of people won't know. So I'm going to allow you to describe it perfectly, because it is honestly one of my favorite things in the world, and I just sit there with the Tupperware and I just eat it. I don't even bother putting it into a bowl.
So the Yorubas would say eforiro.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful cocktail of greens and traditionally amaranth, which is not really grown in the UK for consumption. I guess you can grow it and eat it, you know, if you have a garden, you have space. But I've never seen amaranth in the shops or at the farmer's market sold. So I use Swiss chard, nice sturdy spinach, spring greens. So eforiro is greens. Basically, it's a bowl of greens. It can be quite spicy traditionally with lots of Scotch bonnets.
But it also has like, is it like these little dried prawns or fish?
It's got crayfish.
That's what I love. It's got that very like umami taste to it.
It's got crayfish, lots of other things depending on the tribe. So where I'm from, I'm not Yoruba. So efo is a Yoruba term and that dish.
Okay.
So Yoruba is typically spicy. They love heat. My mother is from the southwest, south of Nigeria, Akwa Ibom and Igbo tribes. So Akwa Ibom is where my father's from, and we're a minority. My mum's one of the majority, actually, Igbo. But the way we cook that type of dish is a little bit different. So we don't cook the greens for that long. We don't make it that spicy. But then again, individuals, I'm sure there's some Igbos who are firecrackers, you know. But
come on to my tribe. That's going to be my tribe. I'm called the firecracker tribe.
Yeah, but that dish, I love so in the book, I call it braised greens with sweet peppers. And then in the description, I mentioned efo. But in my family, we wouldn't call it efo, but that's what it is. Okay. And that dish is really dear to me as well, because that's what I cooked for my grandma when she had diabetes. And as a young teenager, when I'd be back from boarding school, I'd spend some time with her at home, and I would make her that greens dish with boiled unripe plantains. She was addicted to plantains, as I am. But as a diabetic, plantains has quite a high sugar content. So the doctors would say use unripe plantains instead.
Okay.
I'm sure she shouldn't have eaten plantains at all, but she couldn't. She was like, no, I love my plantains. So I'd make her boiled unripe plantains and the greens, and it was just so now I make those greens almost every day. It's always at home.
Right, that's going to be the next dish I'm going to make from the book. You asked me earlier what else am I making, and that's going to be it. That's this weekend. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. You ended up studying, this is interesting for me, you ended up studying economics at university. So I'd love to know at this point what you were wanting to do with your life.
So economics was my choice, which is unusual. Typically, Nigerian parents would be like, doctor, lawyer.
Yeah.
My mother was proud. She thought economics, okay, maybe you should be a banker or something. I wanted to work in development. It was always something that I thought, would be quite good. I'd always been interested in especially in Africa and developing countries. I don't like to call them developing countries, but, just for reference. So I studied economics, hoping that, I would learn about the world, how the markets work, and I could sort of go back and sort of work in international organizations like the UN or World Bank. My dream was to work for the World Bank. But along the line, I just got a little bit disillusioned with the actual workings of such organizations. Not going to criticize them, because a lot of people doing amazing work. I just thought it was just far too bureaucratic and elitist to an extent. So I fell out of love with that working in that industry. But I never really forgot my passion for development. So I fell into food. At university, I was cooking. I'd go to nice restaurants, come back and cook in my flat. And then I started falling into food as a sort of hobby/career. I went to Nigeria for a few years. I got a job on television. I had a restaurant. It just started taking over my life to the point where I just couldn't deny the fact that this was what I was meant to do. You know, when you start getting things and you're doing them so well, what else is there? Yeah. So I fell into food, fell in love with it increasingly. You know, first it was TV show, then restaurant, catering company. And then I came back to the UK and then I started doing supper clubs. And at supper clubs, people would want to cook the recipes and say, can I have your recipe? And I give them. And I thought, maybe I should teach them. And then cookery school. And then I'm like, what next? So
it's amazing when you look back at these journeys, like in hindsight, because clearly that was, not to sound too sort of like fluffy, frilly or whatever, but it must have been your destiny, because
I think so.
It feels like you sort of decided not to go down the original path, which is fine. We're all allowed to sort of go all over the place. That's what, I've done that in my life. But I guess it's just interesting that it's sort of just all fit into place in a sort of roundabout way. Too perfectly,
I'd say. Because first I had a column in the newspaper writing about food, but I'd intertwine it with like social issues. And then I got a job with BBC World Service Trust, a job I applied for. And then at the same time, got a lease on a restaurant space for a pizzeria. Yeah, a pizzeria.
Wow.
Because I thought business decision in Nigeria, Nigerians love pizza, fast food. So I thought a pizzeria will be amazing. A delivery service as well. At the time, there was no delivery service. And my competitors were Lebanese and the foreigners doing pizza. I thought I'll beat them at this. So I opened a pizzeria and then turned down the BBC job. So I was always straddling between media and food anyway.
That's so interesting. So, oh my God, so you must be a great pizza maker.
Wow. I'm not bad.
My other favorite food.
We made pizza from scratch. So every day we'd make a big batch of dough, and people were always complaining like it's taking too long. I'm like, because we have to roll your pizza and pop it in the oven. But yeah. It was always never far from me. I loved food. I loved the business of food. I loved teaching. I love sharing. I guess the writing was always coming, but there was never a clear plan that I was going to write.
But also, looking back, I'm just trying to like imagine like all of these things that you've done, like under the same umbrella industry. You've actually tried out every facet of the food world.
Yes.
Which, you've done the restaurant, you've done the teaching, you've done hosting, like you've literally
I've done it,
tried it all. So you've kind of, now I'm sure at this point, I'm probably just like speaking for you, but you sort of know exactly what it is that you like doing, that you feel maybe needs more work on. Perhaps where things are lacking in the industry. Like it's great.
Yeah. And I'm glad for those experiences. My mother was very worried because restaurant, I think I was in my early 20s, and she was like, you haven't lived, you haven't worked, and it's very stressful. Now people ask me, are you going to open a restaurant? And I say, I will if I have the right backing. But I know that it's not as glamorous as people think it is. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of money.
It is. I mean, obviously I speak to so many people who are chefs or restaurateurs. And my friends come to me and they're like, oh, now you're in this world. When are you going to open a restaurant? I'm telling, and this is my PSA, it's never going to happen. I'm sorry. Because my greatest pleasure, as I'm sure is yours, is eating out. I love eating out and trying food. I don't want to take that away.
My greatest pleasure is actually feeding people.
Okay, fine. But similar.
But in a wholesome way, not in a chaotic way.
Yeah.
So if I do have a restaurant, I would need a lot of help. Like I want people to. I don't want to lose that joy.
It's just too much. But as you said, like it's tough, and it's tough.
But people don't see that. They just think, oh, you must want a restaurant. I do want one, but it has to be carefully planned and with the right backing. Everything done the right way and with lots of money to make sure that you pay people the right way.
Totally. And that sort of like very nicely brings me into a conversation that I'm like thoroughly interested in, which is that, we're talking in 2022. There's a lot going on in terms of diversity, inclusion. There's obviously a hell of a lot more that needs to be done.
Yeah.
But in bringing the conversation of African food to the table, no pun intended, there's definitely been a surge in people's interest and knowledge of African food, and also being able to try these kinds of cuisines. When I was growing up, honestly, the only African food that I could tell you that I tried was Moroccan, because it was quite cool at the time in the early 2000s when people were cooking couscous and, you know, making a tagine. I mean, even honestly, the ignorance of me maybe at that point was like, I probably wouldn't even have considered Moroccan food to be African food, right? But nowadays, you go down to Borough Market, you've got Ethiopian food stalls. Where I live, and there's lots of Eritrean restaurants. Talk to me about, I guess, the evolution of it and people's knowledge and want of wanting to know more about these cuisines.
So sometimes when I see in magazines or in, you know, like Time Out, I think it was Chisuru. There's a number one London restaurant. Yes. And that made me really happy. But it's almost, you know, when you feel like, now, Nigerian restaurants, Ethiopian restaurants, lots of African restaurants have always been dotted around the UK, especially London. They've always been there. They haven't just suddenly appeared. Yeah. But they were never the subject of the media's attention. You know, people gravitate towards, you know, where the top journalist or, you know, where people talk about. I think social media has played a huge part in making people know what's out there. You know, fufu was trending, you know, on TikTok. And before then, people were like, oh my, fufu, what's that? Yeah. You know, people like me have known this food all my life. It's nothing new. But social media has been great. Of course, there have been exceptional chefs who have been running supper clubs, you know, opening restaurants, and some opening restaurants closer to the, you know, to the higher, you know, to the hub of where, you know, food lovers are. So I think there's an ecosystem that has been growing. There have been the traditional restaurants still thriving, doing their own thing, you know, on the outskirts of the city. Then you have people opening more restaurants. You have authors like me writing about the food. You have journalists talking more about it. And then you have people pushing it in the mainstream, which I'm doing with Africana as well, putting it on television, talking about it on radio. And I think we cannot ignore the the Black Lives Matter movement and all that happened, you know, during the pandemic, all that, you know, the tragedies that happened in America and here. I think all that has raised this consciousness in all of us. So in people that were eating and cooking this food, perhaps more confidence to share. And not just save it for themselves. You know, when I started doing supper clubs, people would tell me, you're so brave. Oh my God, you're so brave. Sharing this food. Like, why is that bravery? But then think about it from their point of view. It's something that people have always thought was bound to fail because it's a bit different. It's, you know, not photographed properly. It's a bit misunderstood. And for me, it was...
I think that's what it is. I think it's misunderstood.
Or not understood.
Yeah, like, or not understood. It's definitely not understood. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Yeah, and that's the premise for Africana. In Africana, I literally hold your hand and say, let's go on this journey. Let's go on holiday and discover. It's not preaching to you, or it's educative, but it's in a very soft and approachable, open way. Pulls you in and allows you to form your opinion. Allows you to sort of bloom into the recipes. You know, so all these different things in this ecosystem, the restaurants, the chefs, TV, and then you have people, you know, the restaurant critics going to the restaurants, talking about it. Everything's happening in unison. And of course, timing is everything. It seems to be our time.
Of course. I mean, dare I ask you, if you had to choose, I mean, I sort of know what the answer is here before I even ask the question, but if you had to choose your favorite cuisine from Africa, what would you choose?
I don't have a favorite cuisine. I just have favorite foods.
Okay.
And it's very difficult because Africana is filled with all my favorites that my publisher could allow me in under 300 pages. Cuisine-wise, I really can't pick cuisine because I like different things from different cuisines. The beans is my absolute favorite. I just love, and it might be an emotional attachment to it. It's just... This is what I grew up. My mother fed life into me with those beans. And when I die, literally, that's the last thing I want to eat.
That is your final meal.
One of the worst times of my life when I had my tonsils taken out, I asked for beans, but really spicy, which is very strange because when you have your tonsils taken out, you're supposed to have ice cream.
Yeah.
and not chili.
Maybe the chili was going to numb it, actually, possibly.
It did something. I think I'm one of those people that likes pain. I quite enjoyed that. But yeah, the beans I love. I really love North African flavors. the floral essences of it, because it's very different from West African, which is more heat and more sort of earthy, flavors. So across the board, I really love West African cooking. I love North African cooking. I love orange blossom and honey and hibiscus. I've merged all of that together. So there's really it's a very hard question. I have no favorite. I just have that one favorite dish.
No, and I think also just going back to like what I mentioned, for example, 10 years ago, if you'd asked me, have you ever tried Ethiopian food, or would you even be able to describe it? I'd literally say no, because I don't think there's anywhere that I could find to go to. And then you sort of go down to Borough Market, and there's a really well-known guy there who has a food stall, and the food is fantastic. And I'm not vegan by any stretch. I think most people know this about me by now. But, there's a lot of like vegan dishes in that cuisine, so it's sort of open to everyone. Because I think perhaps a lot of people who don't know a lot about, particularly even like Nigerian food, they think that, it's just all meat and fish heavy,
Yes.
But actually you can kind of work around it. But like Ethiopian food was an amazing discovery for me.
It's wonderful, very flavoursome.
Yeah.
And then they do have the tibs, which is like a steak dish, and they have like the raw meats as well.
Yeah.
So it's the variety as well. And that's another thing that I point out in Africana. We have this joke in African events, we're like, where's the meat? Because when I started running cookery classes in London, it was purely plant-based, and people were shocked by that. They're like, really? African food? Because I wanted to challenge people. I'm like, we can make flavorful food without meat.
Yeah.
When you go home, I'm not vegan either.
Yeah.
When you go home, you can add whatever meat you want. You can add, but I just wanted to show you how your food can be amazing without meat. And that obviously attracted lots of vegans, vegetarians, people who wanted to eat healthily. But another thing with Africana is I didn't set out to write a healthy book, but the recipes are super healthy and super... they're not as expensive as they sound. They're cost effective, which is actually perfect for especially what we're going through now.
Absolutely. And also I think, as much as I do eat meat, I do eat fish, it's also about being wary of how much meat you are consuming, and it is something that I'm aware of. And I would happily eat vegetarian meals. I eat a lot of vegetarian meals.
Yeah,
and you've got some great ones in there. So
there's lots of ways to substitute the fat as well, because we need that rich fat in the oils.
Exactly.
Egusi is one of those dishes. It's very rich in the oils from the melon/pumpkin seeds.
Right, that's probably. I'm not. I don't know why, but I feel nervous to make that dish. I don't know why.
Just remember how you crack the jollof.
Okay, right. It just. I mean, this took 2 goes, but yeah, okay, all right.
Just 2.
Well, the first one I was not serving to you. I don't know what everything went wrong.
And you know what you did wrong? You literally disobeyed my.
I literally disobeyed. I have to just say, there's something very important that I have now learned about jollof rice. When they tell you to stir once and leave it, listen to them.
Yeah, it does. It does work.
Because I did the cardinal sin. I came in after 20 minutes, was like, oh, this is looking a bit burnt, and poured in a whole load more of water. Anyway, whatever. I still ate it, but it just wasn't what I was used to.
My guidance really is for a reason.
And honestly, I have to say, as like your unofficial recipe tester, it is to the recipe. Like the method is exactly it.
Yeah, I tell you what to expect.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely loved it. Before we sort of leave this conversation of sort of African cuisine, what else do you think needs to be done to kind of bring it? It is heading to the mainstream. Yeah, if not already. But what else do you think needs to be done?
I think to help that ecosystem. One of the biggest questions people ask me, like on telly, they're like, "Oh, are the ingredients easy to find?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think
they're quite easy.
They're very easy to find.
I mean, listen, we are talking from London, and I'm aware that we are very, very spoiled with the diversity and choice that we are around. But sorry, I'm like trying to answer it for yourself.
No, you're absolutely right. But I think what people can do. I think we often allow people to tell us what to do. If you like, say you buy Africana, you love it and you want something from it, you can't find plantain wherever you live, just ask your greengrocer. It doesn't matter if he doesn't have it. The more you ask for it, the more people, they literally stock what you need.
Okay.
I live in Sussex and I ship plantains around the country for my virtual cookery classes. My greengrocer buys them for me. Because he knows I'm going to need 50 plantains and he will buy it. So your greengrocer goes to a supplier to order food. If you want something, ask for it. And just as if you want something, if Africana, flies off the shelves and, is in everyone's home, you have the supermarkets now stocking, this is how it works.
Yeah.
They will stock what you need.
Totally.
So the power is in our hands as cooks. So I think that ecosystem of helping to provide, the ingredients that you do need by asking, really. And then if you ask your greengrocer and he doesn't have it, he probably knows someone else that does sell it. And you won't believe that they sell that thing in your neighborhood, but it's there. Just ask or Google.
You're absolutely right. And I always bang on about this, but it's literally the proof is in the pudding, because that's what Yotam Ottolenghi did with Middle Eastern food.
People are cooking the dishes.
Yeah, I remember growing up, obviously, I was growing up in half Iranian household. So I knew all of these spices and I knew where to get them from. There was like 2 places in London.
Yeah.
But now I can go to my local Sainsbury's and they are selling things like sumac and za'atar and things.
A little bit meager, though, in the supermarkets.
Pardon?
A little bit meager.
I mean, very much so. But the point is that they're on the shelves, right? Yeah. And that was not happening, even 15 years ago. So
everything takes time.
Totally.
Yeah.
So at home, tell me what you're cooking. Like, what are your specialities when you're just cooking for yourself or for the family at home?
So I'm really, for somebody who's a stickler and who really put a lot of science and intuitive knowledge into my book for recipes, I'm not a recipe follower.
Okay.
I never really cook one recipe the same way. I'm one of those people, and it's testament to how I grew up. You don't measure anything. You cook from the heart, and and as you taste it, you go ahead, and it's like, oh, amazing, finish, So I'm not a recipe follower, but I do love to eat lots of greens. I love tender stem broccoli, the braised greens, beans. I love all kinds of beans. So I have lots of butter beans, Nigerian honey beans, brown bean, all kinds of beans, even baked beans from the can. I love baked beans. The particular brand, it's my favorite.
I actually love baked beans.
More brands available. Yeah, I love baked. I can't. So basically, when I have plantain and sausages and eggs, I have to have baked beans. It's incomplete, and ketchup as well.
I'm going to go and pick up some plantains. I mean, I tried to go yesterday to get you some, but to serve with the jollof. But for some reason, they didn't have any. But I know where else I need to go. But that's a delicious dish.
Yeah. So plantains, with that fry up is amazing.
Yeah.
I did it once, I think, on my Instagram. People were like, oh, I didn't realize. It's like people just don't, you have to give them the idea. They're like, oh, I could actually just have plantains in my fry up. Why not?
Absolutely.
I had another dish where I did like a medley of vegetables, aubergines, courgettes, tomatoes, peppers with plantains. It's wonderful. Delicious. So this is how I'm a greedy. I love flavor, color. So I just, mix and match. I love Thai food. I love, ginger, lemongrass, fragrant dishes.
What food do you dislike?
Pasta.
Oh yeah. I don't know why. I don't even know why I asked that question.
I think pasta, and it's not really a dislike; it's a fear. Like I think I need to be hypnotized out of it.
Do you ever go to Italy?
Sometimes, but I would stick with pizza.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah.
Pasta, I stay away from.
Okay.
And believe me, I know that pasta is nice.
Yeah.
It's not that I think it's not nice. I know that it's wonderful. I've taught a pasta making class. So I know it's lovely, but I just can't. It's really there's a block. I think I need hypnosis or like what do you call these things?
I know someone. You can have some
acupuncture. Does that? I don't know.
I'm thinking about putting you into therapy, but I don't know. We'll see.
Pasta is a huge fair. I don't know what I think will happen, but pasta, I don't really. Yeah.
Well, it's come from that trauma.
Yeah, there's so many things I don't like. I'm actually a picky eater. You think I eat everything? I can't eat nuts anymore. I developed a nut allergy after writing the book.
No way.
I went to Ghana and I was snacking on nuts like a crazy person, and I had a huge swelling on my neck, and I was like, okay.
Gosh.
Yes, I have a nut
See,
allergy.
look, she nearly had to die for this book, all right?
Should I have said that? I mean, yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. We need to, when we have a reprint, put that at the back. She almost died.
So buy the book.
Yeah.
What 3 items are always in your fridge?
Ooh. Oh gosh, now I'm really obsessed with nduja. I'm working on this dish with like plantain croquette with nduja stuff in the middle. Oh,
hello.
Nduja I'm obsessed with. Ketchup. I'm going to name more than 3.
That's okay.
Ketchup. Oh, my strawberry, my smoky tomato and date jam that's in the book. Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm addicted. I'm trying to kick like the popular ketchup brand out of the market. So I made this jam that I think everyone has to make. I think that's the first thing everyone should make, and just have it in your fridge.
Okay.
Eat it with things in Africana or anything else. Really wonderful, smoky, fragrant. It's with dates as well. So smoky tomato and date ketchup jam. Well, so I always have that in the fridge. It's always there. And loads more things. Tahini, I love tahini. Tahini, we say tahini because that's the popular name. But in African cooking, we use a lot of sesame seeds and sesame paste for a lot of stews. Yeah. There's a fish and sesame paste dish in the book, actually, that uses tahini. And then, I really like chili oils, like you do too.
I'm just checking if that was going to come in at any point.
I like chili oils, but I'm not a firecracker like you are. You have quite the collection.
I think I have a problem. I don't know. It's something I'm dealing with.
I can't have that many, otherwise they will sort of go off. There's a very, very nice chili oil dish in the book that's almost like there's a condiment in Ghana called shito.
Okay, I'll tell you. I've been told about this, and apparently it's incredible.
It's very pungent.
Yes. Yeah. Is the recipe in the book?
So my version is more Nigerian based, which is not as fishy.
Okay. So I need to make it. No, I know what it is.
Yeah. So shito is really nice. You can put it on like beans.
Yeah, perfect.
You can drizzle it on hummus.
Yeah. That's all kinds of me. When you are out and about, where are some of your favorite restaurants to go to?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot here. I really, really like Thai cooking. When I'm looking for flavorful food and, there's no African restaurants about, I love Thai restaurants. And I'm really one of those people who I don't always look for the most popular place to eat. I try to sort of, growing up, actually, university, I ate a lot in Wagamama. I used to buy Wagamama takeaway.
Do you know what I have to say? It was around that time, I think, when Wagamama was
new.
It was new, but also Wagamama was the first sort of like high street chain that, for me anyway, that I remember it was like a thing on a Saturday.
Very approachable eating.
Very approachable. It was even the style of eating, sitting on benches, communal eating. Oh my God.
So it may not be the most fashionable place now.
No, but you know what? I have a lot of love for that place.
I used to call in and say, chicken katsu.
That's what we all used to have.
Time.
Chicken katsu with extra katsu sauce on the side.
Oh, there's a dish called the firecracker, actually.
There is firecracker rice. I used to have that as well.
Because I lived just across the bridge. Opposite the IMAX. So I just walk across. In Covent Garden, there was a Wagamama.
I know exactly where.
So Wagamama delivery. I don't know. At the time, that must have been expensive, though, for a student. But yeah.
Well, I used to love that place.
Takeaway. But now, I love lots of Asian cooking. And I'm really enjoying the African restaurants popping up. I really like Akoko. It's in central London. That's really... I like the aesthetics of it as well. It just reminds me of, of being in like several different African countries with the earthy aesthetics, the walls, the art. I'd say people should try lots more African restaurants.
Absolutely.
I haven't been to Shisuru.
So I went and it is absolutely fantastic.
They had lots of nuts on the menu. So I think now that I have a nut allergy.
I can't remember, but it was honestly one of the most delicious meals. And Joke, who owns it, is the most wonderful human being. Incredibly charismatic. Lovely to meet her. And she comes around and talks to you, and I think for people that may also not know the cuisine, it's lovely to be able to like ask her questions as you're going along. But honestly, the food was brilliant. Every dish was standout. Okay, so I always finish my chats with my quick fire questions, which I'm going to start calling my quick fire questions. What is the craziest food you've ever eaten?
Oh dear. Well, in Benin, there's a dish, I can't remember the name now, but it's made with goat's blood. I can't remember the name. It's a stew made with goat's blood. Okay. So they drain the goat and they cook. It's very rich. It tastes lovely, but I just thought it was weird. And that's me not dissing the country.
No, it's just a different kind of meal.
But then it's like, the Scottish eat haggis.
Yeah, true.
So we're not that different. The goat's blood dish for me, it was very, very different and shocking. I need to find the name.
I don't even know what to say.
Goat's blood in Benin Republic. Google it.
Lovely.
Yeah,
okay. Well, when I'm next there, I'll give it a go. What has been your most memorable meal?
The beans.
Aww.
Honestly, I can't shake it. It's just the beans, the stewed beans in palm oil and and, crayfish and plantain. Sometimes I put the plantains inside. Sometimes I fry the plantains separately. I can't think of anything that has topped that. Yeah, honestly.
Well, it's also like the beautiful emotions and memories that it brings you, right? Which I think is what food is all about.
Yeah. Your jollof pretty memorable.
Oh, stop it!
Honestly, it's really, really.
God.
I'm not joking. If you serve this as a party, and claim that you're not Nigerian, nobody will believe you. It's
honestly,
very good.
I don't think you realise how happy you've made me.
Should I take some of the compliment as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as the recipe creator. But I think this could be one of the best moments of my life. I'm not sure, but it's definitely up there. Right, a very important question. My favourite snack of all time is a packet of crisps. What is your favourite flavour of crisps and why?
Ooh, I'm a plain Jane. I like salt and black pepper.
Okay, so we're talking like, I'm going to use a brand here. So we're talking like kettle chips, salt and black pepper.
I really like.
But that's still got a good punch.
It's really, but I've started going for the baked one now. Is it baked?
Yeah, someone else was saying this to me the other day. No, I'm sorry.
I thought, let me try this baked chips. And then I was like, it's not terrible. I really like there's an onion flavored, there's an onion flavored crisp I tried lately that was not bad. It's just, it left me a bit, oniony, but
I mean, listen, you're talking to the person that has her pickled onion Monster Munch on her celebration. You can see it.
Yeah.
They're there.
The onion flavored chips are quite nice, but I'm a really plain. I mean, I love plantain chips, which is
love plantain chips,
lightly spiced.
Yeah,
but yeah. I mean, my pizza is always pepperoni and chili and extra cheese, and now nduja. But yeah.
Oh my god,
I love nduja.
Always need that in the fridge. What food? I think I know the answer to this one as well. What food sums up happiness for you?
I'm so boring, right?
It's gonna be the beans, isn't it?
The beans is more so. It's happiness, but it's like heartwarming. I think maybe happiness, more exuberance might be. I love jollof and plantain. I really, really enjoy puff puff. The puff puff in the book, the Christmas pudding puff puff for me is fun. Lots of dishes like my lamb. I did this mishui lamb with hibiscus and cumin salt.
Oh,
I
wow.
love that dish. So many dishes that, I really love my book.
I can tell. And you know what? That's great. It's good that you actually love what you've created. Seriously.
So lots of, I'm a greedy eater for flavor, and I really put that in the book. So a lot of the things in the book make me happy. It's like new experiences now. So in another interview, I won't just say beans. But ultimately, beans. The beans is really...
We're all going to have to make this bean recipe now.
Yeah, and with any beans that you have,
no, totally. Yeah. Final question. Live to eat or eat to live?
Live to eat. Live to eat.
That's my girl. Oh my gosh, Lerato, this has been... Honestly, not only am I just so happy to sit down with you and pick your brain, but also just it's so interesting to hear the journey that you've been on. And I just think what you're doing for African cuisine as a whole is going to be so huge for the world, because we need to be educated a lot more. And I do think we're slowly getting there, but with beautiful books like this, we will go a bit further.
Thank you. I'm just one person. I hope people...
you know what? It can take one person, So congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for making me the happiest girl in the world.
I just want this interview to be over so I can finish the
So
tub.
she's been staring she's been doing a little side eye.
Did you catch me? Yeah, I was like,
I'm gonna have to reheat it for you now.
That's what a good jollof does. The look of it and the smell, the fragrance is really... You're
absolutely right, actually.
Bewitching.
It's like you can taste it before you've actually tasted it.
Yeah, it looks the part. It's sexy jollof.
Hey! Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Until next time. Thank you for listening. If you love what you hear, please subscribe and review. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram @CrazySexyFood and check out the Crazy Sexy Food YouTube channel. Until next time, bye.